Wade
and Wade
reacts.
This is our review for Gundam Requiem for Vengeance. This is going to be a spoiler review, so if you haven't seen this yet, go ahead and click out, and then when you get finished, come back. We thought we'd check this one out because some people in the comments told us if you want to get into Gundam, this is a good place to start. So what do you think about this movie?
Gundam Requiem for Vengeance is definitely a good place to start for a Gundam newcomer. Somebody who's never watched Gundam, maybe you've seen it briefly, so you know somewhat about it. This is a good start to give you some details about the Gundam world and so that you can begin to understand what's actually happening.
Yeah. When we hopped into this, I didn't know anything about Gundam. This is my first time ever watching a Gundam series.
Yeah.
Because I saw clips and, like on YouTube, and then back in the old days of Toonami, but I never sat down and watched it. And this surprised me because when I first saw this series in the animation, I was kind of thrown off. I was like, man, maybe it's not. But when I got to looking at it, they actually surprised me with the pacing.
Yeah.
Because the story kept moving and it never really stopped.
Never stopped. The opening scene starts off in the battlefield. It seemed like Zeon's forces were moving towards enemy forces. Then the enemy hit the Zeon platoon with an ambush. Right after that, the Red Wolf squadron came down in mobile suits to aid Zeon forces and started instantly going to work and tearing down the enemy like it was nothing.
Yeah, and I like how they bigged them up. Because when they first showed it, it's like, okay, I see why you need a mobile suit.
Yeah.
But later on in the movie, the Federation released their mobile suit. And the Gundam, man, the Gundam on this movie, for a little bit, it felt like a slasher film.
It did.
Because every time the Gundam showed up, you knew it was a wrap for Zeon because they had no answer for him.
Yeah. When the Gundam was first introduced, nobody knew what the Gundam was. They said, what is that? And they tried to use all of their mobile suits' weaponry to destroy the Gundam, and they were surprised to see that their weapons didn't even put a scratch on the Gundam. So like you said, it turned into them running away from the Gundam operator like people run away from Michael Myers.
Yeah, the Gundam was just knocking Zaku's and Goose down just left and right. He was tearing them up. And the thing, I appreciate the fans of Gundam because when we were watching the series, I could point out the different mobile suits because of them. It was looking at, okay, that's a Zaku right there. That's a Goose right there. That's a Jim right there. And also, because I don't think you need any of that to watch this movie.
Right.
But it just made my experience more enjoyable.
Exactly, because we actually understood what was going on, even to the small, minute details. We knew exactly what was happening.
Yeah. Now, I forgot to mention the Zaku tanks and they dropped the mention of Newtypes.
Yeah.
And when we watched that, I was like, okay, I know what a Newtype is.
Exactly. So once they explained that Iria Solari was a new type, we knew exactly what that meant.
Yeah.
She had psychic abilities. She knew exactly when the Gundam was going to attack because the Gundam operator was also a new type.
Yeah, and that's what made him so dangerous because he not only was the suit better, but he was better than your average pilot. And I like this that they never gave the main characters any rest. They always was in a state of panic because they knew once that Gundam got up on them,
it was over.
It was over, and it really was all the way down to the end. And then before we even get that far, the reveal of the Gundam pilot that he was a kid.
Yeah,
and I was like, why he was a kid? We was all speculating: is it her husband? Because they said he died. We said maybe it was her husband as a pilot. Is it her son? Is he the pilot?
Right.
Maybe but then it revealed it is a kid, but it's not. He doesn't have any relation to us. That he's a new type. That's where the connection came from.
And I liked how this series explained what a new type was or what the abilities of a new type was through visual storytelling. They showed that the person or the aura of the person in the Gundam kind of reminded her of her son. So that gave you some hints as to what type of person was operating the Gundam. So you let you know that it could have been a kid, but you weren't quite sure yet. It still gave you some mystery to solve. Then it finally unfolded and you knew what her psychic abilities were telling her.
Yeah, and this also made you sympathize with Zeon, this movie too.
Sure did.
Because at the end, Zeon was on the back foot and they had to get off Earth. Because if they didn't get off Earth, it was over.
True.
And the climax of the film threw me for a loop because I didn't expect the main antagonist, which was the Gundam, and his pilot in this movie to go out the way that he did.
Me either.
With the sneak attack from a stab with the sword on his back. And that was different.
Yeah, it definitely was. And it seemed like the Gundam operator, since he was a new type, could also sense that Area Solari was a new type. And because of that, he was having mercy on her in certain scenes. He could have killed her plenty of times. He had her on the ropes, rather on the ground, and could have dealt out the finishing blow, but instead he chose to spare her and take care of a different part of the operation or the mission that he was sent to accomplish.
Now, this movie isn't all good. So I don't want anybody watching this review to go into thinking this movie is just the best thing they ever seen. There are some bad spots in this movie. Like, and this might just be a nitpick to some people. It didn't take me out of the movie, but the animation wasn't really all that good on the faces.
It wasn't. The facial expressions were lacking. They weren't realistic. Now, it's not unbearable to see, but comparing it to other animated works, you can definitely see where the lapses in the development of this animation were. Now, the textures on the armor and the clothing were good, but the facial expressions were too robotic.
Yeah, and then this story fell victim to plot convenience too, because you talked about this as well when we was watching the movie. The Gundam should have had some type of sensor because we saw him do this in the first fight. He was dodging when the Zaku tried to get up on him, but when the Goof stabbed him in the back, he didn't dodge it.
Exactly.
Yeah,
he didn't dodge it. Earlier in the movie, he was dodging attacks that came from behind, on the side, any blind spot. It didn't matter, and that's what made the Gundam so devastating. But in the last scene, he got caught by surprise, which, like you said, didn't too much make sense.
Yeah, and another thing too, I didn't really get the main character's motivation at the end. The ending was cool. It felt like a 2007 Transformers movie ending, especially that monologue she gave. But I didn't get her motivation because she said she wanted to get back home to her son, right? And she found out that there was a teenager piloting a Gundam, and she said she was going to stop any kids from getting killed. I'm thinking, so you telling me you're going to stay on Earth stopping kids from getting killed by killing more kids in Gundam suits or in any other mobile suit? How are you going to stop these kids from dying? I didn't get that part.
Exactly. It's impossible because they're using children to operate these Gundams. You have no choice but to take them out. They're trying to take you out. They're trying to destroy your life. You're going to have to try and destroy theirs. So I didn't think that that was a strong motivation. I think a better thing would have been for her to go back to the Zeon space base and then come back with a new and improved plan, new and improved Zaku, so that they could attack the enemy at their base and prevent any more children from dying instead of fighting the Gundams head on.
Yeah, you're definitely gonna need a better mobile suit because Zaku is not good in these situations. I don't know if they further, as the timeline went on, if they created better Zakus, but the ones they use in these movies were horrible. Or in this series was horrible.
I was also wondering as I was watching it if a high mobility Zaku could have done better against this Gundam model.
Probably could have. It had more movement capability. The Zakus on this was slow. The only ones that was fast, only mobile suits that Zeon had that was fast was the Goose.
Right.
But they were still getting whooped because they didn't have beam technology.
Yeah, that was one thing that the Zaku operators were surprised about. Once they saw the Gundam pull out a beam rifle, they said, what? He has beam weapons? I guess to them that was impossible. And that shows you the ingenuity of the Federation and their eagerness to outdo the Zeon in battle. They came out with a whole new piece of technology, and it was far superior to anything that the Zeon had at that time.
And one thing I did enjoy about this movie that we got to see the engineers come together and actually build a Zaku.
Yeah.
And because I was wondering about that when we watched Gundam, like, okay, who's responsible for this? But it seems like if you have the know-how, you have a good enough team, you can put together a mobile suit pretty easy.
Yeah, true. And they definitely put it together in like a day and a half, maybe 2 days.
It seems like. So from a scale from whack to masterpiece, where do you rank this film? Or not this film, but this series?
This series definitely isn't whack. I enjoyed every episode because there was no useless dialogue. They didn't make you wait too long for action. They kept things right on moving, gave you information through dialogue briefly, told you things through visual storytelling that you needed to know that were essential to the plot. And I think it had a pretty decent ending. So I'll say that this show is good. You'll definitely enjoy it if you watch it.
Yeah, I'm going to have to agree with you. This show, it's not the best thing I've ever seen. It's not the worst thing I've ever seen. It's right in the middle. It's good. And I think it's good because the story wasn't the best, but it did what it had to do, and it made me want to watch more.
True.
Like, because when we was watching the clips, you can't really get a grasp on the Gundam, but now I want to know more about the 1 Year's War.
Yeah, exactly.
And they said that this little sequence right here took place after the Battle of Lone, and that's another thing that made my ears perk up. I was like, oh, okay, now I know a little bit about that.
Yeah,
I saw a little bit of it. So yeah, this made me want to further my knowledge on Gundam, and I do recommend this series for anybody else that wants to watch this series. You never seen Gundam, this is a good place to start.
Yeah, fantastic introduction. Makes me want to see a live action version.
Yeah, and I think for season 2, they should, skip a couple of months, and it'd be kind of crazy if her son decided to get in a Zaku and come down to Earth and look for his mother.
That would definitely be crazy.
Yeah. But hey, that's been our review for Gundam Requiem for Vengeance. Don't forget to like, don't forget to comment, share this video, hit the notification bell, subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one. We're out here.
Peace.